Notre Dame, the most prestigious program in all of college football. From touchdown Jesus to legendary players, coaches, and the devout fan base, the Fighting Irish stand as a symbol of excellence in the sports. But for all their accolades, the glitz, and the golden helmets, there's a shadow that looms large over South Bend, a streak that haunts them every winter. Since 1994, Notre Dame has made 10 appearances in the best postseason games, whether it was the Bowl Alliance, BCS, New Year's Six, or the College Football Playoff. 10 chances to cement their place amongst the nation's elite. 10 opportunities to silence the critics who questioned whether the Irish belonged in modern college football's top tier. And yet, each of those games has ended the same way, with heartbreak, humiliation, or both. In this video, we're diving into the dark history of Notre Dame in recent major bowl games. I'll break down every game, providing the context, stakes, and storylines that led to these moments. Will the Irish ever find redemption on the biggest stage? Before we get started, smash the like button and subscribe. 2 easy things to do, but it helps out the channel tremendously. Thank you guys. The 1994 Notre Dame team entered the season with sky-high expectations under head coach Lou Holtz. They had won back-to-back Cotton Bowls in the previous 2 seasons with a combined record of 21 wins and 2 losses. For 6 straight years dating back to 1988, the Irish had finished ranked in the top 15. 4 of those times it was in the top 5, and I of course can't forget to mention the 12-0 national championship squad of 1988. Back to the point. The Fighting Irish were perennial contenders, but 94 was a weird season. Notre Dame was led by a strong run game with tailback Lee Becton and a stout defense. However, injuries and inconsistent play throughout the year saw the Irish finish the regular season with a disappointing 6-4-1 record. Despite their struggles, their brand name secured them a bid to the Fiesta Bowl, pitting them against a powerhouse Colorado team led by Heisman Trophy winner Rashawn Salam and quarterback Cordell Stewart. It was 2 contrasting styles going at it. Colorado's explosive offense against Notre Dame's disciplined, grinded-out approach. The Irish face an uphill battle even before kickoff, though, because Lou Holtz's team was in transition, and their offensive struggles, particularly in the passing game, were exposed throughout the entire season. Defensively, while the Irish were strong on paper, containing Salam, who had rushed for over 2,000 yards that year, was a daunting task. Moments after kickoff, it became clear that Notre Dame was outmatched. Colorado jumped out to an early lead with Stewart and Salam slicing through the Irish defense. Notre Dame's offense sputtered and was unable to sustain drives or match Colorado's firepower. The 41-24 loss marked the beginning of Notre Dame's struggles on the national stage, a theme that would haunt them for decades to come. 1995 was clearly supposed to be a bounce-back season for Notre Dame, but it didn't get off to a great start, and some fans were even worried. The Irish opened the year with a home loss to unranked Northwestern. Ouch. But luckily they got back on track, closing the campaign on a 9-1 tear, notching 3 top 15 wins, including Texas, Washington, and USC. Unfortunately, a lack of firepower is what plagued this team when they competed in big games. Awaiting 6th-ranked Notre Dame in Miami was number 8-ranked Florida State, a team that had barely missed the national championship game. The Seminoles, coached by Bobby Bowden, were led by star quarterback Danny Cannell and a high-powered offense that had propelled them to a 9-2 record. Florida State entered the game as a 10.5-point favorite, with analysts predicting that their speed and athleticism would be too much for Notre Dame to handle. The Irish hung in there, but it wasn't quite enough. Danny Cannell effectively picked apart Notre Dame's defense with 4 touchdowns, while Warwick Dunn added a spark in the running game, going for 151 on the ground. Back-to-back bowl game losses, something uncharacteristic for Notre Dame at the time, but something fans would also need to get used to. 1996 marked a big change in the Notre Dame football program. The Irish went 8-3 and didn't qualify for a major bowl, so they decided to decline any other offer, missing the postseason for the first time in 10 years. Hall of Fame head coach Lou Holtz also decided to call it quits, retiring because he felt like he accomplished everything that he could at the school. The next man in line was Bob Davie, who took over the head coaching job in South Bend starting in the 1997 season. He wouldn't get the team to the big stage until his 4th year in charge. The 2000 season saw the Fighting Irish Irish returned to prominence behind quarterback Matt LaVecchio and a strong running game led by Julius Jones and Tony Fisher. Notre Dame finished the regular season 9-2, and their lone losses were to number 1 Nebraska and number 23 Michigan State, with both being close contests. The Irish were rewarded with a trip to the Fiesta Bowl, ranked 10 in the nation, where they could face the upstart 5th-ranked 11-1 Oregon State Beavers, led by Heisman candidate quarterback Jonathan Smith and wide receiver Chad Johnson. Expectations were high for Notre Dame, as many believed they could use this bowl game as a launching pad to regain the national relevance they lost after the departure of Lou Holtz. Critics questioned whether Davies' conservative offensive schemes could keep up with Oregon State's high-octane attack. The Beavers, who had already secured a share of the Pac-10 title, were a hungry and athletic team, eager to prove themselves against a traditional power like Notre Dame. The game turned into a nightmare for the Irish. Oregon State dominated from start to finish, with Chad Johnson and TJ Houshmandzadeh torching the secondary. The 41-9 thrashing was one of the worst defeats in program bowl history, exposing the gap between Notre Dame and the actual nation's elites. After 2000, Notre Dame fans had to wait another 5 years between BCS Bowl appearances, and things were anything but stable within the program. After a disappointing 2001 season, Bob Davie was fired. Tyrone Willingham was in as the new head coach in 2002, but was run out of South Bend within 3 years after posting a 21-16 record during that time span. The 2005 Notre Dame squad was reinvigorated under first-year head coach Charlie Weis. Weis brought in offensive innovation and a renewed sense of optimism to South Bend. Behind Heisman finalist quarterback Brady Quinn, wide receiver Jeff Samardzija, who broke 1,000 receiving yards that year, and running back Darius Walker, the Irish posted a 9-2 regular season record. Their only losses came in a heartbreaking shootout against number 1 USC, remembered for the infamous Bush push, and a late season defeat to Michigan State. Their strong season earned them a number 6 ranking and a berth in the Fiesta Bowl against Ohio State, a perennial powerhouse under Jim Tressel. OSU had a dynamic offense featuring quarterback Troy Smith, wide receiver Ted Ginn Jr., and a bruising running back Antonio Pittman. The Buckeyes were ranked number 4 in the nation while also boasting one of the stingiest defenses in the country. Notre Dame, meanwhile, was riding the momentum of their resurgence under Weis and hoped to prove they can compete with the elite programs once again. While the Irish showed flashes of brilliance, the Buckeyes' speed and talent proved overwhelming. Ted Ginn Jr. and Santonio Holmes both had huge nights against Notre Dame's secondary, and Troy Smith's dual-threat ability kept the Irish defense on its heels. Brady Quinn and the Irish offense did manage to put up points, but they couldn't keep pace. Ohio State pulled away for a convincing 34-20 victory, leaving Notre Dame searching for answers yet again. Luckily, Notre Dame had an immediate chance to right their wrongs, getting an invitation to the Sugar Bowl in the next season. Brady Quinn was in his senior year looking as strong as ever, yet again finishing as a Heisman finalist, putting up a career high of 37 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. Although the team's record looked good on paper at 10-2, there were still some questions. That's because Notre Dame only accumulated 1 ranked win and got blown out by Michigan and USC in their other ranked matchups. The Irish were ranked number 11 and earned a trip to New Orleans to face quarterback Jamarcus Russell and the number 4 LSU Tigers. LSU was playing in its own backyard, making it feel like a virtual home game for them. Russell, a future number 1 overall NFL draft pick, was surrounded by weapons like wide receiver Dwayne Bowe. Defensively, LSU's speed and physicality posed a real challenge for Notre Dame's O-line, which had struggled against elite pass rushers all season. The game quickly turned into a rout. LSU's defensive front overwhelmed Brady Quinn, forcing him into hurried throws and limiting the Irish rush game. Jamarcus Russell had a field day against the Notre Dame secondary, connecting on big plays that energized the hometown crowd. The Tigers cruised to a 41-14 victory, handing the Irish yet another humbling defeat on the big stage. Just like the last 2 coaches, Charlie Weis had eventually fanned out after showing initial promise. He followed up the solid seasons in 05 and 06 with an atrocious 3-9 record in 07, plus a mediocre 6-6 year in 08 and 09, which led to his firing. The 2012 season was magical for Notre Dame. Under third-year head coach Brian Kelly, the Irish went undefeated in the regular season, finishing 12-0 and earning the number 1 ranking in the country, led by a suffocating defense anchored anchored by Heisman finalist Manti Te'o, Notre Dame relied on grit and determination to grind out close wins, including a triple overtime thriller against Pitt in early November. Their return to the national championship stage was hailed as a revival of their historic dominance. Standing in their way was Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide, a dynasty in the making with 2 national titles in the previous 3 years. Alabama entered the game as heavy favorites, boasting a dominant run game led by Eddie Lacy and TJ Yeldon, along with a stout defense featuring future NFL stars like CJ Mosley. Notre Dame fans believed the team's historic resilience and Kelly's coaching could lead to an upset of the ages. But the game was over almost as soon as it started. Alabama marched down the field on their opening drive, scoring with ease and never looked back. The Crimson Tide dominated every facet of the game. From the trenches to the secondary, it was a 42-14 blowout. Brian Kelly's 2015 squad was one of the most talented teams Notre Dame had fielded in years. Despite many injuries, including losing starting quarterback Malik Zaire early in the season, the Irish rallied behind backup Deshaun Kaiser. With playmakers like Will Fuller at wide receiver and Jalen Smith anchoring the defense, Notre Dame finished the regular season 10-2, narrowly missing the college football playoff with a heartbreaking loss to Stanford in the final seconds. Their consolation prize was a matchup against number 7 Ohio State, the defending national champions, in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State was stacked with NFL-caliber talent, including Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas, and Joey Bosa. Despite missing out on the playoff, the Buckeyes were one of the most dangerous teams in the country. Notre Dame, on the other hand, was eager to prove they belonged amongst the elite after just losing to Clemson and Stanford earlier in the season. The game was competitive early, but Ohio State's star power eventually took over. Ezekiel Elliott gashed Notre Dame's defense for over 200 yards, while Joey Bosa wreaked havoc in the trenches before being ejected for targeting. The Irish struggled to sustain drives, and a late comeback attempt fell short as the Buckeyes secured a 44-28 victory. Once again, Notre Dame left a marquee bowl game empty-handed. The 2018 season was another banner year for Brian Kelly and Notre Dame, very similar to 2012. The Irish went 12-0 in the regular season with no slouch of a schedule, beating 4 ranked teams. They secured their first ever berth in the college football playoff as a 3 seed, with quarterback Ian Book providing steady leadership and a stout defense anchored by stars like Jerry Tillery and Julian Love. It seemed like this team could finally break through. However, nobody believed in them, and their semifinal matchup with the undefeated number 2 ranked Clemson would be their proving ground. The Tigers, led by true freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence, entered the Cotton Bowl as a juggernaut in the midst of their mini dynasty. They featured an explosive offense with wide receivers like T. Higgins and Justin Ross, complemented by the running style of Travis Etienne. On defense, Clemson's fearsome front line, headlined by Christian Wilkins, posed a nightmare matchup for Notre Dame's offensive line. The Tigers were on a mission to prove they could dethrone Alabama, a team they lost to last year in the playoff semifinals, but first they had to get past the Irish. Notre Dame's hopes unraveled quickly. After a competitive first quarter, Clemson seized control when Trevor Lawrence unleashed a barrage of deep throws. Julian Love's brief absence due to injury was critical as Clemson capitalized with a long touchdown pass to Justin Ross. 2 years later, Brian Kelly was back against a familiar foe, but the 2020 Notre Dame squad had a very unique path to the college football playoff. After joining the ACC as a temporary member due to COVID-19, the Irish did go undefeated in the regular season, including a dramatic double overtime win against number 1 ranked Clemson. However, in the ACC championship game, a fully healthy Clemson team got revenge, blowing them out 34-10. Despite the loss, Notre Dame secured the number 4 seed in the playoff, where they faced top-ranked Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Alabama entered the game with perhaps its most dominant offense ever, with Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith, quarterback Mac Jones, and star running back Najee Harris. The Tide were averaging over 40 points per game and had steamrolled nearly everyone on their schedule. Notre Dame's defense, which had struggled against elite speed in the past, were now facing a monumental challenge. The game unfolded as many had predicted. Alabama's offensive trio was unstoppable, with Devontae Devontae Smith going crazy, and Najee Harris making highlight reel plays, including an incredible hurdle over a Notre Dame defender. Ian Book and the Irish offense struggled to sustain drives, managing just one touchdown in a 31-14 defeat. Although the scoreline was less lopsided than previous matchups, it was clear that Notre Dame did not belong in company with the elites. Notre Dame entered the 2021 Fiesta Bowl amid significant change. Longtime head coach Brian Kelly had shocked the college football world by leaving for LSU just weeks before the game. Defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman was promoted to head coach, and the Fiesta Bowl became his debut. The Irish, ranked number 5, were 11-1 on the season, with their lone loss coming against Cincinnati, a playoff-bound team. Facing off against the number 9 Oklahoma State Cowboys, Notre Dame sought to end its New Year's 6 drought and start the Freeman era with a bang. Oklahoma State was led by its veteran quarterback Spencer Sanders and a relentless defense known for forcing turnovers. The Cowboys had barely missed out on the playoff after a heartbreaking loss to Baylor in the Big 12 championship game a few weeks prior. The matchup was framed as a battle between Notre Dame's offensive firepower and Oklahoma State's defensive resilience. Notre Dame got off to a hot start, with quarterback Jack Cohn throwing for 4 first-half touchdowns to build a 28-7 lead. But the Irish fell apart in the second half as OK State's defense tightened, and Spencer Sanders orchestrated a remarkable comeback. Notre Dame's inability to run the ball and their defensive breakdown sealed their fate as the Cowboys stormed back for a 37-35 win. Let me know what video you want to see next. Thanks for reaching the end. I've been Saturday Shenanigans, your home for unfiltered college football content.